Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sean Talks Cybersecurity. I'm your host, Sean Wolfslegel, and it is a lovely Friday afternoon in sunshiny Pennsylvania. So, I just want to say hello and thanks for joining the live stream today. I really appreciate that. And I got a couple of good ones for you today. I got a couple of things to follow up on. First, before I get into all this, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed to my channel over the last couple of weeks. I've gotten a lot of new subscribers, and I just want to say thank you so much for subscribing. Really appreciate that. Thank you for liking and sharing these videos out with your family and friends. I know, sometimes people, like most people, have very busy days, and I just want to say I really appreciate, you going out and sharing all that out with your family and friends. Thank you so much. So, without further ado, let's dive into some of the news here. So, today's interesting story is Bill Toulis over at Bleeping Computer reports that Microsoft is apologizing now for removing the VS Code extensions that were used by millions. So, if you remember a couple days ago, I talked about this. There was this very popular thing called material themes free and material theme icons. Material theme based on like the very popular theming convention that Android went with years ago, back in like 2014, 2015 era. And so that material theme has really been a catch with people. And as you can imagine, like people really like that. They like the way that it makes the app icons look and everything. So it turns out that basically a member of the community did a deep security analysis of the extension and found multiple red flags that indicated malicious intent and reported this to them. And then security researchers at Microsoft confirmed this claim and found additional suspicious code. Researchers Amit Asaraf and Ite Kruk, who were deploying AI-powered scanners seeking suspicious submissions on VS Code, first flagged them as potentially malicious. But it turns out that apparently that's not true. There was nothing malicious. Hadn't updated the extension in years since I was focused on the new version, apart from the obfuscation process. Astorino, who is the developer, told them. So basically, he objected the allegations, and so it was from an outdated Sanity.io dependency used since 2016 to show release notes from Sanity Headless CMS. Just thought that was an interesting one today. Basically, this... not all the time security is right. We just basically sometimes make mistakes, and that's okay. It's all right. It's just as long as we admit them. Whenever we do make mistakes, that's the important part. And so that's really what I wanted to hit on there. Sorry for the freaky picture, everybody. So Medusa ransomware hit over 300 critical infrastructure orgs. This is a big deal. This piece of news I really feel like is worth talking about, because I've talked about operational technology before, and I've talked about ransomware in the past. And so I think, we're on episode 18 of this now, so we've been talking for a little bit. And anybody who's been following me, getting to know me, I'm very passionate about like taking operational technology and ransomware seriously. A lot of places just don't, and it's sad to me. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. When I think about it, like it's 2025, and we've been having this conversation since at least 2011. Like it's time to really, pick it up and run with it. Ransomware hit over 300 critical infrastructure orgs, according to CISA. So let's dive into it. So basically, 300 organizations revealed. So this was revealed in a joint advisory issued today in coordination with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, so the MSISAC. As of February 2025, Medusa developers and affiliates have impacted over 300 victims from a variety of critical infrastructure sectors with affected industries, including medical, education, legal, insurance, technology, and manufacturing. CISA, the FBI, and MSISAC warned on Wednesday. FBI, CISA, and MSISAC encourage organizations to implement the recommendations in the mitigations section of this advisory to reduce the likelihood and impact of Medusa ransomware incidents. Also, just want to say this, just for the record, my stance on ransomware is this, and I will stick to this until the day I die, unless something crazy happens to change my mind, which... Feel free to add it in the comments or the chat below if you do have a thought on this, because I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, my fellow cybersecurity professionals. my thought on ransomware is you never pay anything. You never pay. I don't care if your data gets stolen or lost or whatever. It's encrypted. It's gone. Literally, you're going to pay these people, and that's going to empower them to go ahead and continue to do this to other people. You should never pay these guys. They're the bad guys. You know what I mean? We don't give in to terrorist demands, and you should not ever pay these people, because all you're going to do is give them more power by doing that. So I'd be curious, like I said, you go ahead and feel free to add your thoughts into the chat. Feel free to put it into the comments section if you're watching this later. I just really, really feel strongly about that, and I get really tired of seeing people who do pay their ransoms. And I go, well, I get you have a business. I know you have a business to run. First of all, why did you allow the ransomware attack to happen to you? Why didn't you hire some cybersecurity professional to actually come in and clean your systems up like you should have done? So as you can tell, I get really annoyed about this because I've seen it. I haven't seen a ransomware attack happen firsthand, and knock on wood, I hope I never have to. But I will say, if you're gonna have critical organizational systems in place, you really should be securing your stuff, and you should really take it seriously, because these bad guys are gonna come after you, and yeah, just like the train robbers of old, you will find yourself without all of your stuff, all your important stuff. Okay. Rant over. That's it for my rant for the day. Thank you so much for listening in on that. Okay, let's dive into Windows fundamentals. One, I'm pretty sure anybody listening to this has probably touched a Windows computer in their lifetime. If you haven't, you probably, I don't know why you wouldn't have, but I won't hate on you if you haven't. Maybe you just grew up with a Mac and you didn't ever touch a Windows computer, but I'd venture to guess that most people have probably touched Windows. But anyway, we're going to dive into some of this because there's some good history here. I'm a big fan of history. So Windows has been around since 1985, and it's a dominant operating system, as we all know, for home and corporate networks. A lot of corporate networks really rely on Windows, a lot of Microsoft shops out there. When I say a Microsoft shop, if you don't know what that is, that's just like a term in the industry to basically say it's basically a whole entire office space that's run with Microsoft technology. So that's a Microsoft shop, Windows shop, you'll hear. So Windows XP was a popular version of Windows and had a long run and was long running. And Microsoft announced Windows Vista, which was a complete overhaul and a complete dumpster fire. So there were many issues with Windows Vista, obviously. And so people really weren't happy with that. You had a lot of people jump ship and go over to other operating systems at that point. But then they had Windows XP, or not Windows XP, but Windows 7 came in and basically saved the day. Windows 7 was a big hit with people. Basically, it really was a very workable operating system. But anyway, yeah, so you can see here, like, they make some notes. Again, many other hardware and devices, vendors had to work against the clock to ensure their products worked with Windows 7 for their customers. If they couldn't, their customers had to break their agreement, find another vendor that upgraded their products to work with Windows 7. So they weren't without their faults. But for consumers, mostly, Windows 7 was a blessing. But then Windows 7, there was Windows 8, and then once again, of course, Microsoft, as they are, they kind of didn't do so hot with Windows 8. Windows 8 was complete dumpster fire again. And yeah, and then we get Windows 10. And finally, we have a very stable version of Windows again. And so Windows 7, Windows 10, and basically now we have Windows 11. And Windows 11 is extremely stable as well. I really like Windows 11. But anyway, what encryption can you enable on Pro that you can't enable in Home? I completely skipped over that, but of course, let's just... What encryption version? That would be BitLocker. But I skipped it, but I know the answer. So it's BitLocker is the encryption that you can enable. Okay. So, oh yeah, I didn't mute my notifications here. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay. Well, anyway. The Windows Desktop, aka the Graphical User Interface, or GUI, this is your GUI right here, this big old window here, is the screen that welcomes you once you log into a Windows 10 machine. Traditionally, you need to pass the login screen first. The login screen is where you need to enter valid account credentials, and then usually a username or password, and password of a pre-existing Windows account on that particular system or in the Active Directory environment. And highlight this point because it's going to come in handy whenever you are If you're going to go ahead and become a red teamer, if you're going to become a pen tester, you really should know Active Directory. Hell, even if you're going to be a blue teamer, you really need to know Active Directory. It's important. So if it's domain joined, which we'll get into later, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but you have your different areas here. You have your desktop, which is this gigantic space right here. And then you have your start menu, which is this little guy right here. You have your search box, Cortana, which Cortana is no longer a thing anymore, I guess, because it's been replaced by all the AI features. And then you have your task view, which is this little guy right here. Your task bar, this is all your task bar. And then you have your toolbars. So it says toolbars, but yeah, I guess this is our toolbars here. That wouldn't be it. This is our toolbar. But really, I mean, I've never even heard of that called that. It's just your taskbar, and then your notification area right here. So you got your notifications that come up here, and on Windows 11, it looks a little different from this. This is still running Windows 10. All right, so you can go under desktop. You can go to display settings, and you can change your resolution. You can do a lot in here under your settings. But like right-clicking and then personalize display settings, you can go into both of these and change some things around. I figure most of you kind of know this, so I'm just gonna kind of breeze through this section here. This is all pretty standard stuff. The start menu. So you had it where you would click here, and then you just get your list. But then they added this, right? And then Windows 11, it actually looks like a lot different. It's actually in the center, and then it's you have basically your apps like up here at the top. If this is the top, right, and then basically your most recent stuff that's just down here. Okay, so all right, basically. Start menu provides access to all your apps, programs, utility tools, etc. And then clicking the Windows logo, the start menu will open, right, as you just saw. So this section of the start menu provides quick shortcuts to actions that you can perform with your account or login session, such as making changes to your user account, lock your screen, or signing out of your account. Other shortcuts specific to your account are your documents folder and pictures folder. Lastly, the gear icon will take you to the settings screen, and the power icon will allow you to disconnect from a remote desktop session, shut down the computer, or restart the computer. And the below image, you can see what each of the icons represent. Okay, so yeah, pretty good stuff. Basically, what you see here is what they're talking about, all these different features. And then you have your recently added, which would technically be up here at the top, but we don't have it out on this machine. And then basically, if you have a long list of installed apps, you can jump to a particular section in this list by clicking on the letter heading to launch an alphabet grid, right? So that's if you have a lot, which we don't on this box, but that's what it would look like. The right side of the start menu is where you can find your icons, so you can right-click on one of these, and then you can unpin it, or you can repin it, or whatever you want, resize it, make it smaller, make it bigger, whatever you want. This is all customization. Not really super important for what we're talking about, but we really want to get into the nitty-gritty on this stuff. So the taskbar, some of the components are enabled and visible by default. The toolbar, for example, was enabled for demonstration purposes. If you're like me and want to disable some of these components, you can right-click on taskbar to bring up a context menu, and that will allow you to make changes. What they're talking about is if you actually right-click on this, you can go to taskbar settings, and you can actually change the various settings on here. You can change task view and whatever else you want. So you see here you got your toolbars, and you can do that. But Windows is very customizable. It's also, my analogy is going to be basically, Windows is kind of like the Ford, whatever your everyday man car, basically. Like, you can go ahead and pick up a Windows box, and pretty much everybody can drive it, and it's not super difficult to pick up. Unlike Linux, which is kind of like if you get like a sports car that like you have all the extra bells and whistles, and you have to like figure out where all the different buttons are at inside of that. That's like Linux. Linux is kind of intimidating that way at first, but once you get the hang of it, you can just drive just the same way as you can drive your Ford or your Chevy or whatever you have, right? your Nissan, whatever, whatever you have. That's basically Windows. And so I would say this is definitely a workhorse. Like I like Windows that way because of the fact that it does have a lot of capabilities for getting stuff done. It's easy to pick up and learn and just get into it. So Windows was my first operating system. It's the first operating system for most people. But like I said, I'm just gonna breeze through this section here because like most of you guys probably already know this. Which selection will hide and disable the search box? So if I were to go to taskbar settings and I could do it there. I guess that's not it, but anyway, if I go to, so taskbar settings right here. And then if I were to go to search, we want to select which icons show in the on the taskbar. No, okay, I was wrong. Okay, well, let's go back up here. So, all right. Basically, you want to go to so you have your show task view button, your search. There you go. Yeah, so you do want search, and then you want hidden. That's what it would be. So, okay. Perfect. Which selection will hide, disable the task view button? We just do show task view button. And then besides clock and network, what other icon is visible in the notification area? We have our desktop toolbar, right? So, so we have desktop. And then we have our network, clock and network, and then our desktop. Which is not that. I don't know why it's not. Let me see here. Toolbars, desktop. Let's do a hint because I'm actually not sure. Try right-clicking the icon. Task view, is that what it's saying? Show the task view button. Or the... I really don't know. Honestly, I'm kind of stumped. Y'all, if you have it in the chat and you want to just put it in there, please feel free. The chat is live, and you can feel free to go ahead and hop on in and add whatever you want here. But essentially, I just thought it was just the desktop, but I guess I'm wrong here. Besides clock and network, what other icon is visible in the notification area? Calendar? I mean, you have your date and time. That wouldn't be right. Network. Hidden icons, maybe? Well, that's not right. Well, y'all, this is the fun part about being live. You know, you got to just kind of roll with the punches, but I don't really know. I mean, it's the hidden icons here, but I don't know what else it could possibly be. Toolbars. And then we have this desktop. I don't really know. Honestly, let's just move on. We'll come back to that later. I don't really know. I don't want to waste anybody's time here, but yeah, anyway. The file system used in modern versions of Windows is the new technology file system, or simply NTFS, right? So NTFS is something to get very familiar with. So before NTFS, there's FAT16 and FAT32. Usually if you have a thumb drive, like a USB drive, FAT32 is going to be what you use. And then you have your HPFS, which is your high performance file system. But NTFS is typically what Windows uses. You'll still see FAT partitions in use today. Like I said, USB drives, micro SD cards, but traditionally not on personal Windows computers, right? So NTFS is known as a journaling filing system. In case of a failure, the file system can automatically repair the folders and files on disk using information stored in a log file. This function is not possible with FAT. NTFS addresses many of the limitations of the previous file systems, which is files larger than 4 gigabytes being able to be supported. specific permissions on folders and files, folder and file compression and encryption. If you're running Windows, what is the file system your Windows installation is using? You can check the properties by right-clicking the drive of the operating system in use. You can also do this too. Well, I don't want. Let's just go ahead and stick with what it's asking us to do. So basically, if we click here on File Explorer, we go out to this PC, and then we go to Properties, and then we can see NTFS is our file system. Okay, so NTFS. Cool. All right, so you can read Microsoft's official documentation on FAT, HPFS, and NTFS here, and then let's speak briefly on some features that are specific to NTFS. So on NTFS volumes, you can set permissions that grant or deny access to files and folders, and the permissions are full control, modify, read, and execute, list folder contents, read, and write. And this is the reason why I say you need to get familiar with NTFS especially, is because if you're going to be in different roles in your career, you might find that if you're working with like Microsoft Teams or SharePoint or Exchange, like all the Microsoft world lives by these NTFS permissions: read, write, read and execute, list folder contents. Sort of like how, if you remember, whenever we do that ls-la in Linux, and it shows you the read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute, like what you can actually do there. It's the same thing, it's just Microsoft's own version of it. So NTFS is the same idea. How can you view the permissions for a file or a folder? Right-click the file or folder you want to check for permissions. From the context menu, select Properties. Within Properties, select the Security tab. And then in the group or usernames, select the user, computer, or group whose permissions. So we can do that ourselves here by just clicking on this. And then going out here, this is where stuff starts to come in, where you're actually doing like Windows administration and the things that actually make a difference. So if we right click on Windows and then we start to go into Properties, and then you see Security, and now you can actually see who has access to it, and then you can start to break that down into who should actually have access to it. You can edit the permissions, click Edit, and then it will actually allow you to start putting things in or shaking things up. So yeah, good to know that information for your career. Super useful stuff. You will definitely use this stuff. Another feature of NTFS is alternate data streams. Alternate data streams, ADS, is a file attribute specific to Windows NTFS. Every file has at least one data stream, which is this $ data, and ADS allows files to contain more than one stream of data. Natively, Windows Explorer doesn't display ADS to the user. There are third-party executables that can be used to view this data, but PowerShell gives you the ability to view ADS for files. From a security perspective, malware writers have used ADS to hide data. Not all its uses are malicious. For example, when you download a file from the internet, there are identifiers written to ADS to identify that the file was downloaded from the internet. To learn more about ADS, you can refer to this link from Malwarebytes. So let's click out there and let's just talk about ADS for a quick sec. So alternate data streams, these are attributes on NTFS like we've already talked about. And so basically these data streams suffer from a bad reputation since they have been used and abused to write hidden data, varying from data about where a file came from to complete malware files, backdoor ruststock.a. If you are for an experiment, we can easily create and read an alternate data stream. So if you're curious and you want to dive into this, I highly recommend coming out here and taking a look. But yeah, you can actually do under PowerShell. They actually give you right here on this Malwarebytes link all the different what you need to actually put in to PowerShell. So you get GCI-recurse and then pipe and then percent GI full name -stream and then where stream not equals data, right? And so then you can start to get that ADS back, and you can remove it. You can remove the ADS, and then yeah, so pretty good stuff actually, I think. But yeah, you can go out there and you can learn a little bit about that if you want to, and then also Advent of Cyber right here on Try Hack Me. So that's pretty cool. So what is the meaning of NTFS? That is the top of my head, I can't remember what it's called again. New technology file system, and you can tell how many times you actually need to know that information. You just don't. You don't need to know that, unless maybe you're taking a test. But I've never actually seen that come up in a test. But it's really important because NTFS is like the very beginning of Windows administration. So I think this is going to be the last one for the day, and then I'm going to wrap. So this is it. We got Windows System 32 folders. So the Windows folder, C Windows, right? And notice how this slash is different than it is on Linux. This is going to confuse a lot of people, but I promise you, you got to remember that they're just backwards. Windows, it's going to be this this forward slash, which is usually like right above your enter key. Like if you look down on your keyboard, like on mine, I can see it's actually right above my enter key. But on Linux, it's actually right beside my shift key on the left-hand side of my right shift key. So you got to remember that, because when you go to like different root directories and such, you need to know that those are actually opposites. So the folder doesn't have to reside in the C drive necessarily. It can reside in any other drive and technically can reside in a different folder. This is where environment variables, more specifically system environment variables, come into play. Even though not discussed yet, the system environment variable for Windows directory is %win directory %. And this is basically just the way Windows puts these system environment variables, right? So, per Microsoft, environment variables store information about the operating system environment. This information includes details such as the operating system path, the number of processors used by the operating system, and the location of temporary folders. Keep that all in mind too. So here we can see like this is our directory, print working directory on Linux basically. In the GUI. So one of the many folders is System32. We can go out here, Windows, and then we can scroll down until we get to System32. And yeah, if you ever want to have a fun experiment, just go ahead and delete that right off your machine and watch what happens. No, don't ever do that. Actually, it's really bad. Don't take me seriously on that. System32 is essential, and if you delete it, you're going to wreck your system. So don't ever do that. So System32 folder holds the important files that are critical for the operating system, and you should proceed with extreme caution when interacting with this folder. Accidentally deleting any files or folders within System32 can render the Windows OS inoperational. I'm sorry. And we can read more about that here under How to Geek, but many of the tools that will be covered in Windows Fundamentals reside within System32. So what is a system variable in the Windows folder? So if we remember that as our %, and then it is windir, and then another %. And so that's our system variable. Okay, so that's going to be it for this one. Yeah, I really appreciate everybody hopping into the live stream here today. I know it is a Friday afternoon, and people are probably itching to get out of work right now, probably. People are just ready to get on to the weekend and have some fun. St. Patrick's Day this weekend. And I'll do my best Irish accent for you to say goodbye. So let's go ahead and dive right into that. If you don't mind, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share it out with your friends. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a very nice weekend. Thank you. And that's my best Irish accent. So thanks for letting me embarrass myself for 1 minute in front of you. See you later. Have a good weekend.